The Blind Owl is one of Sadegh Hedayat's most famous works, regarded as a profound piece, particularly in the field of psychology. To grasp its essence, one must not only be a proficient reader but also read the book with care and attention. The depth and content of The Blind Owl are so profound that almost everyone interprets it differently based on their understanding. In this video, we delve into an analysis of The Blind Owl and explore why it's worth reading. The Blind Owl by Sadegh Hedayat can be rightly considered one of the most enigmatic narratives available in Persian literature. Each sentence is filled with metaphors and symbols that only reveal their meaning and significance within the realm of interpretive knowledge. Psychoanalytic expertise provides us with the opportunity to unravel its contents with precision and consequently gain insight into the persona of the renowned author Hedayat. I have read this novel from beginning to end numerous times, and with each reading, I have become more acquainted with its greatness, acknowledging Hedayat's profound intellect and subtle subconscious manipulation. As the possibility of publishing my writings is not currently feasible, I present summaries of them in 4 acts as follows. The Blind Owl reflects Sadegh Hedayat's life as a nightmare. In psychoanalysis, a nightmare refers to the eruption of painful unconscious fantasies into portions of reality. These fantasies have an unknown and inaccessible nature for the individual. Every person carries varying degrees of immersion in delusional constructs within their psychological organization. The intensity of these delusional reactions sometimes overtakes the entire real world to the extent that an individual's view of life becomes solely possible through their mental delusions. In such circumstances, reality loses its place in the individual's life, and their behaviors become subject to the unstable delusional conditions that replace reality. From this perspective, we can consider the nightmare as organized delusions with a distressing and damaging content, providing a mechanism of relief and consolation for conflicting and powerful inner cores developed throughout the individual's life. The Blind Owl can be seen as a horrifying nightmare of Sadegh Hedayat's life, a nightmare that ultimately became intolerable for him, leading to his bitter self-inflicted death. The Blind Owl reflects the confused and delusional identity of Sadegh Hedayat. An invaluable finding I have had through examining this story concludes that all the names and characters of the Blind Owl are somehow part of Sadegh Hedayat's delusional organization. This finding can be justified in the form of his delusional identity. The narrator, the girl, the old man with the hump, the nurse, the stuttering woman, the uncle, the aunt, all these characters constitute elements of Sadegh Hedayat's unconscious delusional entities. The question that we answer with this finding is whether Sadegh Hedayat was involved in homosexual conflicts. My analyses indicate that in The Blind Owl, Hedayat's delusional power of sexual contradictions has completely subverted the mentioned personages to the point where we can clearly discern traces of Sadegh Hedayat's personality in each of these characters. The Blind Owl reflects a regression to the early years of Hedayat's life. The fixation on oral stage in this story, which includes the portion related to the writer's reality, is very evident and obvious. The inclination towards alcohol and opium is the clearest manifestation of this defense mechanism in Sadegh Hedayat. The tendency towards vegetarianism in writing a book titled The Benefits of Vegetarianism in Hedayat's real life indicates such a fixation in the oral stage. The relationship with the mother is crucial in this stage. Hedayat was the youngest child in the family, and there was not much age difference between the members. In The Blind Owl, we can clearly observe his need for his mother's love and embrace everywhere. The Blind Owl is full of maneuvers of depressive and self-destructive delusions. Any psychoanalyst reading a portion of this book will undoubtedly say that the author of this book will ultimately destroy himself. Suicide translates the suppressed delusional anger inwardly, and by destroying oneself, this anger will be discharged. Just as we see in patients with depression, the unsuccessful desire for peace in the lost mother's embrace becomes the driving force behind all their life's delusional activities, leading them towards this direction and prompting their behaviors. Going towards death in depressed patients is a repetition of this unsuccessful desire for returning to the mother's embrace in childhood. Killing oneself provides a tranquility comparable only to the peace of a baby in its mother's embrace. The pain of surviving in these individuals is the same pain of being away from an embrace that should have been a sanctuary, security, and comforting solace for their troubled minds, but has been withheld from them for some reason. The Blind Owl is one of the greatest Iranian novels, through which readers become familiar with a vast array of symbols and intellectual currents. Sadegh Hedayat was born in Tehran in 1903 and committed suicide in Paris in 1951. The Blind Owl is remembered as one of the best novels of the 20th century. It is a work that combines elements of Edgar Allan Poe's fantastical and macabre style with influences from the 1001 Nights, while also delving into philosophical and existential themes. Although The Blind Owl has been translated into French and English, unfortunately, it has not received the attention it deserves from Western audiences. Hedayat was a serious follower of Jean-Paul Sartre, and it can be affirmed that The Blind Owl is somewhat written under the influence of Sartre's nausea. In both novels, we encounter a narrator who navigates through a dizzying, fantastical, and repetitive world, and the narrative perspective constantly shifts. In the genre in which The Blind Owl is written, we encounter many masterpieces such as Multi-Lords Brig's Notebooks by Rainer Maria Rilke, Nausea by Jean-Paul Sartre, The Fall by Albert Camus, and The Family of Pascual Duarte by Camilo José Cela. These stories, with a narrative style resembling consecutive confessions, gradually immerse the reader into the depths of the narrator's disturbing world. These stories usually end with a shock. For example, in The Fall, a man suddenly decides to murder his mother. The Blind Owl begins with a strong expression of emotions. In life, there are wounds that slowly devour the soul, like cancer, and are carved in seclusion. These pains cannot be expressed because they are usually considered unbelievable occurrences and rare and strange incidents, and if someone mentions or writes about them, people try to interpret them skeptically and mockingly. As humanity has not yet found a remedy or cure for them, and the only medicine is forgetfulness through alcohol and artificial sleep with opium and drugs. However, unfortunately, the effects of such drugs are temporary, and instead of alleviating the pain, they intensify it over time. Is there anyone who will uncover the secrets of these supernatural occurrences, this reflection of the shadow of the soul that manifests itself in a state between fainting and death, in a liminal state between sleep and wakefulness in a story? The opening section plays a very important role because it sets the tone of the story, and from the beginning, we understand what we will deal with in the rest of the work. What grabs our attention from the outset is Hedayat's cryptic style. He never explicitly states what he means by wound. Is it a physical wound or a spiritual one? He emphasizes this unknown and unrecognizable pain of the narrator, keeping us puzzled. We realize that the only remedy for this pain is forgetfulness through alcohol and artificial sleep with opium and drugs. But we know that such remedies ultimately lead to downfall and worsen the pain instead of relieving it. In The Blind Owl, the narrator is in a state of turmoil that intensifies with every moment. He believes he is trapped between limbo and death in a state of fainting. In his own words, he is neither awake nor asleep. How did such a thing happen? The narrator tries to talk to his shadow. He has cut off all human contact and lives in the four walls of his house, which remain like a coffin. The narrator declares that he lives his life through painting. However, all his paintings are the same, depicting a young woman standing by a river with an old man facing her. Until the middle of the story, the reader imagines that they have figured out the story of the blind owl. They might think they are dealing with the story of a romantic character who is in love with an imaginary and unattainable princess. However, Hedayat disrupts all the reader's assumptions and takes the story into more complex layers. Like the semi-mad heroes of Edgar Allan Poe's stories, the protagonist of The Blind Owl also decides to immortalize this imaginary love before its destruction. For this reason, he begins to make various designs of her, but his efforts are futile. There are many disturbing secrets in The Blind Owl. What is the connection between the girl with no influence and the detested woman with a limp? Are they both the same woman? Perhaps both of them want to represent womanhood in general. Is the old man with a hump the narrator's uncle, or is he himself? Is the narrator hallucinating due to the consumption of opium and dreams, or has he actually gone mad? What if he is dead? Can we really determine exactly what happened in the real world of the story? Defining the story of the book The Blind Owl is a difficult task. If you don't define the important parts of the story, you will only make the novel more complicated for the reader. On the surface, this novel's south story takes place in Iran, but in reality, we are dealing with a complex and inflammatory drama where the main venue is the troubled human soul. In the novel, we enter a realm where life and death merge. We are faced with a world full of imagination and existence, where unfulfilled desires, ambiguities, and suppressed obsessions enter life and come in pursuit of revenge with loud voices. In the heart of The Blind Owl, a deep sense of alienation is seen, a sense of distancing from emotions and human connections. In this sense, a deep existential scream is heard. In the novel, the reader can never announce with certainty what events actually happened and what events are imaginary. The only thing that can be accepted without doubt is this. In life, there are wounds that slowly devour the soul, like cancer, and are carved in seclusion. The entire novel is narrated from a first-person perspective and is constructed of two relatively separate sections. These two sections sometimes relate to each other through similarities in descriptions and references. The book begins with the famous lines, "In life, there are wounds that slowly gnaw at the soul like a canker, carving it out in solitude." He who has chosen the profession of painting on a vase mysteriously always draws the same picture on the vase, which is of a girl in black attire offering a branch of blue water lily to an elderly man in a gesture-like Indian pose sitting under a cypress tree. There is a blue stream between the girl and the old man. The story begins when one day the narrator sees a scene from the peephole of his house which apparently did not exist at all that he has always painted, and is mesmerized by the gaze of the girl Afsar, and his life turns horribly until he finds the girl sitting next to his bed in his house one evening. The girl mysteriously dies shortly afterward in the narrator's bed. Through a successful scheme, the narrator manages to paint the girl's eyes and immortalize her, at least for himself. Then the girl cuts herself into pieces, puts them in a trunk, and takes her to the cemetery. The gravedigger who digs the girl's grave finds a pot that is later given to the narrator as a keepsake. Upon returning home in disbelief, the narrator finds that a pair of eyes, just like the pair of eyes he drew that night, has been drawn on the pot Ragapot. So the narrator decides to place his own painting and the painting of the pot in front of the tray of opium in front of him, drink wine, and take opium. As a result of taking opium, the narrator goes into a state of trance and returns to centuries ago in the world of dreams and finds himself in a new environment that, despite being new to him, is completely familiar. The second part of the narrator's story is in this new world several centuries ago. From here on, the narrator is busy writing and describing the story for his shadow, which is in the form of an owl and eagerly devours everything the narrator writes. Here, the narrator is a young but sick and afflicted person whose wife, whom the narrator does not call by her real name but refers to her as Locket, does not provide him with comfort and is unwilling to lie with her husband, but has dozens of adulterers. The physical characteristics of Locket are exactly the same as the physical characteristics of Afsar in the first part of the novel. The narrator also refers to the story of his parents' acquaintance, who was an Indian dancer, and that he was raised by his aunt, the mother of Locket, since childhood. Throughout the second part of the novel, he refers to his confrontation with men and expresses his hatred for them. He believes that the outside world is the world of men. Men, in his view, are each a mouth with a handful of intestines hanging from it, ending in their genitals, and constantly chasing money and lust. The narrator's nurse is his old nursemaid who was also Locket's nursemaid and foolishly, from the narrator's point of view, soothes the narrator's pains and brings him a healer and sits for his fortune-telling and feeds him various potions. Opposite the narrator's house, a mysterious old man, the pig-snout old man, has always spread his rug. According to the narrator, this old man is one of Locket's adulterers, and the narrator admits that he has seen the place of the old man's teeth on Locket's cheek. Moreover, the narrator believes that the old man is different from others and can be said to be a miniature god, and the rug spread in front of him is the rug of creation. Finally, the narrator decides to kill Locket. In the guise of the pig-snout old man, he enters Locket's room and stabs an osseous quizzical piece he bought from the pig-snout old man into Locket's eye and kills her. As he comes out of the room and looks at himself in the mirror, he sees that his hair has turned white and his face has become exactly like the pig-snout old man.